you, and you?
I'm good. Anyway, what's the subject?
I have come to ask you some questions for an interview we are doing for school about 1994 elections. Do you remember it?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Is it recording now? Okay.
Can I start asking questions?
What one?
Can I start asking questions?
Sure, yeah, shoot.
Question number 1. Before you were 18, what did you know about democracy?
Before I was 18, I knew a lot about democracy. Because I didn't grow up in South Africa, and we learnt about democracy in school. So we knew all about democracy. I think one of the lessons we had was citizenship. And there we learned all about what democracy is and how it works.
Okay. Were you aware of apartheid as an adult?
Say that again?
Were you aware of apartheid as an adult?
Sure. We experienced it daily. When we came to South Africa, we looked for a maid, and when we found a maid, we had to register her so she could work in our house. She was registered to some Indian family.
Oh.
We had to transfer the register that she, instead of working for them, she would work for us. So black people then were not allowed to just go into Johannesburg or Benoni where we were living, but they had to have a permit and they need to be registered.
Okay.
But in order to register her, we had to go to the Indian family or to actually drive there and ask them to give us a waiver and allow her to, but she left them and do the paperwork. She had to, the Indian family had to release her so she could come to us.
Okay. Very interesting. When did you move to South Africa, and what was life like for you during apartheid?
When did I move to South Africa and?
What was life like for you during apartheid?
Okay, we moved to South Africa in 1980.
Okay.
And life under apartheid for us as white people was extremely good. It was a very organized country. It was like a European country, like Sweden. Like you know, Sweden is well organized, well governed.
Yeah.
And the policies of the government to separate black people didn't affect us as whites. As white people, we may have had an opinion about them, but they didn't affect us badly. Now, let me give you an example. When I came here, I started working in a factory and I got a fly into my eye.
Okay.
So I ran to the toilet to wash my eye. Wanted to get it out of my eye. So the first toilet I saw was Bantu female, in other words, black female. Now that was of course not for me because I wasn't Bantu and I wasn't female.
Yeah.
The second toilet was Bantu male, in other words, was black male. Toilet, separate toilet for black male. Now that one wasn't for me. I had to go to the next toilet, and that one was for Indian females. You see, they had a separate toilet. Because the Indians were not classified as black and not as white. I couldn't go into that because I wasn't female and I wasn't Indian. So I went to the next toilet. That was Indian males. And that wasn't me. And then I went to the next toilet in this factory. Toilet number 5 now. That one was for white females. For European females, as they call them. That one wasn't to me. And eventually I got to the 6th toilet, which was for European males. And that was a toilet for me. But by the time I got to that one, the fly had left my eye and I didn't need it anymore. So that's how it was. We had separate amenities. So even if you went into the shop, let's say you went into a shop to buy beer, liquor store, there was one entrance for black people and one entrance for white people. And the trains, Carmela used to travel to work by train in those days. She and her friend, it was the best way to travel into Johannesburg from Benoni. Well organized, nice, clean, good.
Yeah.
They had carriages for whites and carriages for others. The carriages for whites were very good. Of course, that separation wasn't correct. Then compare it to today, where you can't travel by train because there is no train. Because they're bugging it up by bad governments. So that's the difference.
Oh. Okay. How do you feel about democracy today? What is good and what is bad?
How do you feel about democracy today? Let's start with how do I feel about the democracy as it was. Because you see, before 1994 there was a democracy. But it was only a democracy for white people. Black people weren't part of that democracy. So white people were living in a democracy, but black people weren't. So of course, if you take the overall situation, it actually wasn't a democracy. Democracy is where all the people, all the citizens elect the government, and not just part of the citizens. But now what's happening today is a democracy. Everybody is allowed to vote. However, democracy needs some education. You need to be educated about how to vote. You need to, if the government's not good, you need to change the government. What we've got is like a one-party democracy. Because there's one big party which governs the whole time. And it will take a long time for it to change and for the country to be a real democracy. A democracy which takes its politicians and takes them to task if they don't perform well. So we've got a democracy, but our democracy is a bit of an African democracy. There's a lot of corruption, there's a lot of incompetence, and as a result of that, the actual governance today, the actual running of things is much worse than it used to be. It used to be very good, and now it's very poor.
Okay.
I must tell you another thing.
Yeah.
While we're talking,
Yeah.
in Israel was founded, the Jews were there, and it became a Jewish, the Jews came back to Israel. It's a long story. I'm sure you learned about the school Israel. But then they had the War of Independence in 1948.